Yo, what's going on YouTube? Welcome in. So this video is just going to be me giving my thoughts on the patch that's coming up now that I've actually had my chance to play it a little bit on the PTB and get my thoughts and everything. Fair warning, it's not going to be that much different from my initial thoughts that I had when I first saw the developer notes. I made a video on that maybe not too long ago, but I wanted to make another video just to confirm my thoughts and maybe talk about what I've learned and what I haven't seen from the PTB and kind of like my gripes and maybe the things that I'm happy about too. So just first things first, before I get into anything else, because there's going to be a lot of like negative talk because I'm going to be basically picking apart the things that I don't like about the patch. But before I get into that, I want to say right off the bat that I think that this patch is overall a really good thing for the game as a whole. Because I think this is something that we've wanted the devs to do for a long time, which is basically make big significant changes to the game instead of just like the weak stuff that they've been doing for years. The fact that this patch is going to actually change like the vast majority of your games and how they're played is actually a big deal because we usually don't get that. We usually get a bunch of changes to perks that nobody uses and then people continue to not use them afterwards anyway because they're just still bad. So the fact that this is actually going to make significant changes to almost every single one of the games that all of us play is honestly kind of refreshing. Even if some of the changes are going to be bad, at least it's going to be something different. And coming from me who's been playing the game for so long makes me really happy to see. So even if the patch ends up being more negative than positive in the end, I still think it's good that they did it, and I think we should be encouraging them to do things like this some more. Maybe just, maybe a little bit better next time. I mean, that's always good to give feedback so that hopefully next time can be better. Okay, so let's go into the actual meat of the video of what I'm going to be talking about rather than, this boring precursor stuff. So there's three major things. I think there's like three major, divided sections of the patch that I'm going to be talking about. And I'm going to be talking about each one individually and why I'm kind of unhappy with them, or maybe I think they should be looked at and addressed. The first one right off the rip is Dead Hard. I am not really happy with the Dead Hard change, and I've been pretty vocal about it since I've seen it. I don't really think it's, like, don't get me wrong, Dead Hard is definitely weaker now than it was before. I think I can undeniably say that it's weaker, even though that, like, yeah, obviously if you can bait the hit out, you get, like, a speed boost or whatever, so some people are arguing that it could be stronger, but it puts you into deep wounds. It's also a lot harder to Dead Hard for distance, borderline impossible when except for only very specific scenarios, but my issue is that you still have this weird like situation where you have to bait out Dead Hard even if you don't know it exists every single survivor that you're chasing, and you still get in these dumb scenarios. You have to sit there and follow them for like 3, 4, 5 seconds waiting for them to Dead Hard before you can swing, and sometimes you get unlucky and they predict you correctly and then you hit them for, they eat a hit for free, and it's just like, why? It's just like, why? You know what I mean? I feel like at least the other exhaustion perks get used in a way that's kind of tactical. Things like Lithe, like Balanced Landing, even Sprint Burst, you can say, are used in ways that are more tactical to the point where it's like very obvious that they're using them. It's very obvious they're getting value, and then you just kind of deal with it afterwards. Dead Hard, even though the change does make it weaker, and I am happy that it's weaker, it still upsets me because it's still a really obnoxious and unfun perk, and I feel like if they were going to address Dead Hard, I wish they would have fully addressed it and really turned it into something that wasn't mega obnoxious and just turned, and instead I feel like they kind of just like sort of, like I feel like on the scale of like how much you fucking despise going against this perk and how much it like ruins your fun, I feel like it used to be a 10 and now it's like a 9, and it's like, well, thanks. I mean, you brought it down a little, but it's still really obnoxious and I still hate it. So I almost feel like, I don't know, I just wish there was more, because like I'm now afraid that since they addressed it the way that like the way they did, I'm kind of worried that Dead Hard is now just going to stay the way it is for the next, I don't know, year, 5 years. I mean, how long has Dead Hard been the way it is now? Like 5 years? So I don't know, it's kind of concerning for me, and I'm definitely not happy about that change overall. In my personal opinion, I think Dead Hard needs to be changed to something literally entirely different from the even concept of what it is now. I think the entire idea of having a perk where when you're injured, you press E and you basically get a free health state is just absurd. Like, it's just absurd to me. I think it's completely silly, and I think it just shouldn't be in the game. Like, I think pressing button for free health state is just a bad idea. I think it's just a bad idea for a perk, and I just don't think it should exist. I think they should just rework it and make it do something else completely different. You can keep it an exhaustion perk if you want, but do something else. All the other exhaustion perks are very strong, but like none of them are anywhere near as frustrating as this, because it's just the entire design around it is just very frustrating. And if you're a Survivor main watching this and you're about to hit me with the, well, what about Noed? And what about this, and that? Trust me, I know there's other frustrating things, but I'm focusing on Dead Hard because that's the thing that got changed this patch. And again, I'm just ashamed. To me, it's just a shame that it didn't get enough of a change, I feel like. Moving on to the second thing that I want to talk about, and this is honestly, I think, the most important from the whole patch, because I'm really worried of the consequences of this. And that is the changes to, like, the overall buffs for killer in every way, but most specifically the changes to the generator speed, how they got bumped up to 90 seconds from 80 seconds. That is very concerning to me. And especially because it got paired with a nerf to Decisive Strike, where the DS stun now goes from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. And I want you guys to keep in mind that even that 5-second stun, or even the 3-second stun, that doesn't count the time that you're actually doing the animation of the Decisive Strike. So really, you only get about like 1.5 seconds now. I can play a couple clips right here of me in the PTB of getting Decisive Strike, and you can see how little distance the survivors get from me after I get DS'd, and it'll go to show you how kind of impactful this change is. It ran at me. That was a bit weird. I mean, he probably has DS. I kind of want to see how much distance he gets with it anyway. 'Cause I don't think it's going to be a whole lot, right? I kind of got confused by the build, but dude, he gets like nowhere. You get nowhere with fucking DS now, dude. Like, that perk might as well not even fucking exist anymore, man. Why is build broken? Hey, if you got fucking DS, just hit me with it, dude. Just hit me. Okay. Bro. Look at how little distance she got, dude. Look at how easy it is to tunnel. Holy heckums, dude. Look at how fucking easy it is to tunnel. Holy shit. So this is really, really concerning to me because I feel like tunneling, again, I've been very outspoken about this. I feel like tunneling is already the best strategy. And this is something I preach all the time. I always tell Survivor players, like, hey guys, don't get mad at killer players when they tunnel. They're not doing it to be mean the majority of the time. They're usually doing it just because they know it's the best way to win. And of course, people are going to play video games to win. And again, I still believe this to be true, but I feel like the devs are now leaning in more towards this now because I think this makes tunneling even more powerful. Like, I know that Off the Record got a big buff or whatever, but still, I still feel like it's not going to be very unrealistic to just go ahead and smack the person with Off the Record to put them in the deep wounds and then just tunnel them down and then, you know, eat Decisive Strike, which barely even stuns you, and continue to tunnel them. And especially with the gens taking longer now, with them taking 90 seconds, that punishes you even less for doing this. The survivors will get even less gen because what's the counterplay to being hard camped and tunneled? Everyone tells you just rush gens, but what happens when the gens take 10 seconds longer? What happens when a bunch of regression perks are also made stronger? Things like Thanatophobia, Pain Resonance isn't like quite as OP as it used to be, but it still does the same amount of regression. If anything, it does more regression because the gens taking longer makes the 15% actually higher than it was before. So it just seems very scary and problematic for me. So the two major complaints I hear about why people either quit DBD or want to quit DBD usually has to do with either A, killer being way too frustrating or hard, or two, it's survivors being tunneled and camped. It's like the main complaints you get from either side. So don't get me wrong, I'm happy to see killer buffs. I think killer buffs is a good thing, and I feel like it's probably overall good for the game and like the longevity of the game. But I feel like it shouldn't be buffs in the ways that make it unfun for the other side. Does that make sense? I know, again, as a killer player, you're not required to make the game fun for the other side, but I feel like as a game designer, from a game design point of view, I think you should be providing killer players with a playstyle. Like, I think naturally killer players should have a playstyle in mind that is effective and the best way to kill survivors, and that playstyle should also not be like the most miserable experience for the survivors possible. And I just feel like all these changes are moving the opposite direction of that. Like, yeah, sure, kill rates might go up after this patch, but I feel like kill rates are going to go up after this patch, and also survivor gameplay is going to become very, very miserable, even more miserable than before, especially when it comes to things like solo queue, which is a shame. And again, I know if you're a killer player, you're probably like, well, fuck them survivors, but you have to understand that we need 4 survivors for every 1 killer, otherwise you can't even play the game anyway. Like, you won't even be able to play the video game if there's no survivor players. So, you know, I feel like it's kind of a game design flaw that is being exploited even more through the changes in this patch, and I'm really, really not excited for it. I'm not really happy about it. I'm hoping, like, my only hope here is that maybe killer players, like, don't take it as far as I feel like they might. Like, maybe killer players, now that, you know, gens take longer and stuff, maybe more killer players will be willing to not tunnel because maybe they'll feel like they have a chance doing other strategies. Maybe. I feel like that might be how it goes. But I also feel like a lot of the times they're just going to fall back on it because they know it's, again, because they know it's the best way to play, so, and people want to win, so they're probably just going to do it. And I don't blame them. I really don't. I don't blame killers for tunneling. I don't blame them for wanting to win. I just wish that the most effective strat was something that was more fun. Anyway, I'm going around in circles with that topic, so let's move on to the last one. The last one is the off-the-record change, as well as all of the crazy amounts of, like, endurance that you can get as Survivor. Like, the amount of multiple endurances you can get in a row. I mean, I've seen multiple clips of Survivors taking, like, 5 hits in a row with, like, Medal of Man and a Styptic Agent, and then Dead Hard, and then, like, Off the Record, and, like, all these, like, different things, like, involved where, like, a Survivor can sit there and take, like, 4 or 5 hits in a row, and it's kind of crazy. So I really don't think it's actually that imbalanced, and I know a lot of people have spoken out about this. I know, like, Scott made a video about this, where I don't really think all the changes to Off the Record and all that stuff are actually unbalanced, because obviously, like, you know, it turns off if you do generators or anything, and, you know, if people are running around not doing gens and just trying to body block hits, then it's basically like it's not even like a 4v1 at that point, because you have a Survivor essentially doing no objectives. So I'm not even gonna, like, talk about the balance. As a matter of fact, maybe it is unbalanced. Maybe it's overpowered. I'm not sure. I don't know whether it's, like, overpowered or whether it's underpowered, or whether, like, killers are freaking out about it more than they should, because, you know, on the grand scheme of things, you know, like, they're not being very efficient, so you should be fine or whatever. I know, like, a lot of it, like, I'm kind of the personal opinion, and my mind can be changed about this, but I'm of the personal opinion right now that Survivors, like, overly body blocking and stuff isn't really that big of a deal balance wise, because I feel like if you're losing to Survivors that do that, you probably would have lost to them anyway if they split up and slam gens instead. Like, I think no matter what, that's a losing game, but that kind of leads to my point about this. And to me, I don't really even care about the balance as much as I care about how it feels, because I think that's a really, really important thing when it comes to this game. Like, I think losing as killer already feels bad the majority of the time, but I think losing as killer when Survivors play in this way makes it even worse still, and it makes it very, very unfun for a lot of killers, and I think it's like, I think it's a problem. I think that's what makes it a problem. Regardless of whether it's balanced, right? Regardless of whether Survivors that are doing it are actually, you know, being inefficient and not doing gens, and whether the killer's better off with them doing it, I think at the end of the day, it's very, very clear that killer players don't enjoy it. I've been hearing complaints about it left and right. And you could even just say, like, oh, yeah, well, killer players are just babies. But, like, it clearly comes from something, right? Like, there's clearly, there's clearly enough frustration around it as a whole from, you know, the entire side of killers that obviously that frustration is stemming from somewhere. And I feel like that's not great, you know? It's one of those things where, just like tunneling, I feel like the game should be, you know, played in a way that is, like, the most fun for both sides. And if this is something that is determined to be, like, way too frustrating for killers, then maybe it should be addressed in the sense of just some type of a way to make it more fun. Now, this one I'm a little bit unsure about, because I will say, like, the tunneling opinion I'm very confident on. Tunneling has been in this game for a long time. It's a tried and true method. People have tried things against it for years, and, like, it's pretty known. I feel like I know all the ins and outs to tunneling. This, like, strategy of taking, you know, body block hits like crazy and having a bunch of endurance is a very, very new thing. And, like, you know, maybe people will just start running Save the Best for Last more. Maybe people will, I don't know, adjust to it in some way that makes it less powerful and makes it, like, you know, not as bad on killers. So I'm not trying to say necessarily that this is something that needs addressed right away, but this is definitely something that I think might be concerning depending on how it grows. For instance, if it becomes really, really easy to play in this way, as like for Survivors, if playing in a way that's very obnoxious with, like, these, like, kind of tank builds where you're kind of built around taking, like, 30 hits in a row and, you know, like, body blocking for people in chase, and, you know, like, if these types of builds and play styles become very, very, like, easy to do, and also they become very powerful and hard to, like, get around, or even if they're not even hard to get around, if they're just really obnoxious even, and even somewhat effective, then I think it might be a problem, and it's going to turn a lot of people away from playing killer, because they're going to feel, you know, bad about their gameplay. Whereas maybe on the other hand, like, maybe it won't evolve into that, and maybe it'll turn into something that's very, very easy to deal with, and maybe killers will adapt and it'll be fine. But I think it's something to keep on the radar, and it's something that is definitely a little bit concerning to me. I will say, no matter what, I think that the fact that conspicuous actions does not include being healed yourself is kind of weird to me. Like, there's 2 major changes that I think I would change no matter what. First off the record should deactivate during endgame collapse, or not after endgame collapse, once the exit gates are powered. Very, very similar to Decisive Strike. Like, I don't know, like, they basically do the same thing. They're both anti-tunnel. So, like, why would one turn off during endgame collapse, but the other one wouldn't? Sorry, I'm just going to keep using the word endgame collapse, but you know what I mean. Like, why would one do it when the other one doesn't? I feel like they either both need to turn off or neither one, right? So I don't know why that's not a thing. So it should definitely be turning off in the endgame. And also, I think that the conspicuous action should be changed, or there shouldn't be changed, but I think there should be another thing added to conspicuous actions, which is being healed to full health by somebody else. Because a big thing that I've been seeing is people running off the record. They'll get unhooked and they'll run to their teammates, and they'll have their teammates heal them, and then they'll run up full health, take a hit, take another hit to go into deep wounds, which that's like 2 protection hits, so it'll activate their Metal of Man, take a 3rd hit with Metal of Man, then they'll also have Dead Hard that they can use. Like, it's like a ridiculous, like, series of hits. And hell, if you have a teammate that can give you a styptic agent, you can throw another one in there too if you really wanted to get crazy. I mean, there's so many like weird things you can do with that I find absurd. And I mean, in my opinion, if you're being healed to full health, you're definitely not being tunneled, so therefore it should definitely count as a conspicuous action. I don't know why it doesn't. And you know what? Before I end the video, there's actually one more mystery 4th topic that I want to bring up to you that I'm a little bit disappointed in. And that's the fact that I feel like in the developer updates, I feel like I read that they didn't want killers to run 4 slowdown perks all the time anymore. Like, they said that killers were falling back on nothing but slowdown / regression perks all the time, and they wanted that to be different, and that's why they were nerfing things like Pop Goes the Weasel and Hex Ruin. But then they just turned around and like hyper buffed other perks. Like Overcharge is very, very strong now, and Eruption also very, very strong now. And on top of that, the extra gen time makes regression even stronger, because now, again, like 10% of an 80% gen is different than 10% of a 90% gen, right? So every single thing that is percent based is better now, since the gens take longer. And some of them got buffed. Like Eruption's percentages went from like 6 to like 10, which is huge, almost doubled. Thanatophobia got buffed up to like a higher number. Like, there's so many things that are now stronger in terms of regression. So it's going to be still, like, I guarantee you people are still going to stack regression. It's just going to be different perks. Instead of seeing Pop every game, we're just going to see Overcharge every game, which, again, I guess that's okay. Like, I'm glad that we're seeing other things. I just wish that they would have made overall regression less powerful. That way there was more incentive for killers to run things like tracking perks, or even like chase perks, or even like weird like misdirection perks, right? Things like Dark Devotion and stuff. Like, I wish that kind of stuff was more like viable, as opposed to being just like a silly meme build, So again, this is one of those things where I don't necessarily think it's like a change that's going to make the game more negative than it was previous to the patch. I feel like it's similar to Dead Hard, where I feel like it's more like a missed opportunity, right? I feel like they could have addressed something big here, and they kind of like, it feels like they sort of half-assed it, and they kind of addressed it, but kind of didn't. And I feel like we're still somewhat right back where we were before. And I just think it's a shame, because they even said in the developer update that they wanted it to be different, and I feel like it's not really going to be any different. Okay, I think that's about it for my complaints. Again, there's a lot of things about this patch that are great. I'm really, really happy about the other killer buffs that came in, like the reduced hit cooldown, the faster kicks, all that stuff is really, really nice. I love that stuff. Again, the idea of buffing killer in general is something that I support, and I think it's actually pretty okay, as long as you do it in the right way. I also like a lot of the perk changes. I think a lot of them are solid. I think they definitely got rid of some of the very, very overwhelming perks, and they buffed up some of the other ones. And I think overall the patch is definitely interesting and spicy, and it definitely spices stuff up a little bit. And I'm excited to try a lot of the new stuff that we can try now. Again, it's just these few things that are in the patch that I think are going to be alarming and could affect the game in a very, very big way. Maybe. I mean, maybe they won't, but maybe they will. And I think it's something to keep an eye out on, and it's something to keep in mind for the future. And maybe we can give them feedback about this so that their next patches can be better. Anyway, that's going to be it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed listening to this. Let me know your guys' thoughts. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Did anything I say sound really stupid? Am I a dumbass? Do you have more thoughts? Do you have more input that I didn't say? Feel free to let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. This is a very, very big patch. Probably the biggest patch DBD has ever had. So I really, really want to hear people's opinions. It's a super interesting talking point. If you guys like the video, feel free to like it. Helps a lot with the algorithm. Gets more people to my stuff. Subscribe if you'd like as well, because I'm going to be uploading literally daily. I'm also live on Twitch 6 nights a week over at twitch.tv/OhTofu. And also, I have a YouTube channel for shorts you guys can check out. They're both linked down below. And that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Thank you guys so much for listening. Hope you guys have an awesome rest of your night. I'm out of here. See ya. I'll take care. See ya. See you later. See ya.